Hi, I'm Linda Fox, Senior Reporter with PhocusWire, and I'm here with Noreen Henry, and she's Chief Revenue Officer of Sojern. Thanks for joining us, Noreen.
Absolutely.
So, I want to ask you, you've been in the industry for a long time across lots of roles, different sectors, etc. So, just give us kind of 3 high-level thoughts on the future of the industry.
The future of the industry. So, I think there's a couple of things that you look further out and you go, what's a little bit closer in? So when I think further out, we've been talking about personalization for a long time. We are making some progress on that. Yay! I'm very optimistic that we're going to continue to progress. And 10 years from now, you'll look back and you go, oh, we've nailed personalization. So I think that's going to be one of the things. Some of the things that I think are closer in, I think from this pandemic, there's a new normal. I think there are things that have definitely changed that now become tickets to play. Mm-hmm. Consumers now expect flexibility. They expect, we were talking about this earlier, cancellations. I don't want to book a flight now, not knowing that I can change and having to have these huge fees when you do that. So I think as the airlines have gotten more focused on the consumer and what's right for them, my expectations we'll start to see some new normals. The other new normal is safety. There's just going to be an expectation that you're going to take all the safety protocols and that the consumers are going to feel safe when they get to whatever the activity, the hotel or the place that they're at.
Yeah, I really like what you were saying there about the ticket to play, because the interesting thing is going to be how they then change their revenue management, their yield, because that just turns everything on its head. So that's going to be interesting to see. You sort of talked about, sort of midterm, 10 years. Can we actually sit here today, given what we've all been through, and say that that will still be happening in 10 years' time? Or is it just too much in flux?
There are some things that are just really difficult. This industry is so dispersed and so many different players in it, and nobody does one thing. And so I think the complexity of our industry makes that very difficult to just make progress in certain areas. I thought what was interesting, I sat through the Hopper presentation, and 10 years back, we wouldn't have expected all of those innovations going on in the finance side. And so we will see innovations continuing to happen.
Okay. I want to talk about 2 big trends, starting with sustainability. And it seems to be in a lot of the research coming out that consumers are saying access to the information on sustainable travel is a big issue. And the other thing is that they say that what options are there are costly. So, first of all, would you agree with that?
Yes, but I'm also going to flip it. I think there's a consumer perspective, and then there's also the supplier perspective. So tourism companies are very keen on how do they make sure that they're attracting the right customer. And so I think it goes on both sides. So I think there needs to be information that's provided to the consumer so they can make intelligent decisions. And we've got to get better about that. And it can't just be a check the box. There's a green flag that says I'm green.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean anything. Right. Mm-hmm. But we also need to be able to give the travel marketer the information that they need to be able to target the right consumers. That there's this interesting, we worked with Visit Puerto Rico, and they were targeting, she used the term conscientious consumer. Okay. To make sure that they can bring anybody to their island. Let's bring the right people to the island that are going to be conscientious.
Yeah, and potentially high value as well.
Absolutely.
So interesting about that, because, how do we then, lots and lots of people talk about being more sustainable, but when they see that ticket and it's a little bit higher, they go, no, I'm not doing that. How quickly do we see that shift in a substantial way?
I think everything that's going on with climate change and so forth right now, I think it's just front and center for everybody. And I think people are starting to realize we're going to have to pay something for those things, and that it's worth it. Yeah. It's worth it for the next generation. Yeah. So I'm optimistic that people are willing to do those things.
Yeah, I hope so. I think we are all already making changes that perhaps 2 years ago we weren't kind of considering. So, now the other big issue that we're all kind of facing, but also working with, is diversity and inclusion. So, are the right people now listening, do you think?
I do think so. I think what I see different. So, again, being in the industry a long time, and I think our industry is a bit fortunate in that I've worked for three different female CEOs. Yeah. My first CEO was a woman, so I've seen good role models out there for this. Yeah. So they've kind of
seen people like you as you've come up through the ranks.
Yes. So you've seen that. Now what's changed is there's now being metrics and accountability. So it's not just enough to, hey, there's some women there. Actually, what are my numbers? Do I have 50% women?
NASDAQ did something, didn't they?
Yes. Yeah. And people are now being held accountable in their goals. Like, okay, in order to hit your certain bonus payouts, you need to actually achieve these things. And so I think that's what's going to change the needle.
And you're optimistic about that as well?
I am.
Yeah, good. Okay. Now, conference theme here is smarter, bolder, better. Apply that to Sojern and how you're going to build back.
Sure. Okay, that's a great question. So smarter, what I'll say is, and we've said when we come out of this pandemic, we need to come out stronger than we did going in. If we came out the same company on the other end, then we were not
You wouldn't learn anything,
this,
right?
So we did a lot to focus, like many companies did. You have to survive, and you go, let's really focus on what our core competencies are. And while we have some of this downturn, let's improve efficiencies and productivity. So that as we've grown back this year, and it's been a nice big rebound, we're able to grow back with much less staff and a much more focused product.
Yeah.
So I think that's an area where you go, okay, we've done it smarter, we've been bold because we made decisions not to do certain things. Here's where we're going to go. And we've been able to lean into the areas that are recovering quickest, tourism and hotels, and really provide products that meet their needs.
It's interesting because a lot of people are saying that they're building back, but with much smaller teams, and they're being able to more efficiently. They can see that they kind of wondering why they had those people before. Why didn't we start questioning this stuff before?
I think it was the combination. I think it was not only the people, but also I think you had edge projects. They're people's pet projects.
Yes.
And when you have to make decisions quick, those things go, and you can make those decisions. You're in wartime mode. You can make those kinds of decisions.
Now, you were previously with Wayblazer, and we have a lot of startups here, big startups here this year. So, take what you learned at Wayblazer and apply that to, startups who are trying to get something off the ground.
I loved my time in the startup. So I always like being able to see these. I spend a lot of time with the guys here and women and try and give them some thoughts and advice.
The generic guys.
The generic guys, yes. So thoughts along those lines. So things that I would tell them to be careful about. So you really have to watch your costs. So what is your burn rate? And
what can you get rid of?
What can you get rid of? And you need to keep that as low as possible until you hit product market fit. Yeah. Then you can start to invest and do the right things, but you really need to be lean because you need that money to run as long as it can. And you need to be careful where you take your money from. So if you have a strategic investor, they may want you to go in a particular direction that might not be what the market is saying. And that was part of our challenge. And so you need to be careful on both of those things. But on the positive side, you need to be passionate about what you are doing and what you believe in. And if you're solving a problem that's really a problem out there for consumers, you're going to find the right way to progress and find the right business model and pivot to hit the need.
And have you seen in the last couple of days anything that you particularly liked? I mean, you can name names if you want to, but you don't have to name names.
Sure, so I'll name names. So I like, but I'm worried about it. Okay.
Okay.
So I think they were called, it was Road Trips or Trip. It was the
yes,
road trip company that
Road.travel?
Yes,
that one? Yeah.
Road.travel.
Yeah.
So I'm always passionate about someone who's trying to solve the whole trip planning, because trip planning is hard. Everybody's been trying to solve it for years.
It's the one that we all go, oh no, not another one.
Someday someone's going to solve this. So I'm excited that they're in the space. I thought what they were doing that was innovative was integrating into the car. They were focused just on road trips. Mm-hmm. They're doing the partnerships with cars, so it's voice activated and so forth. But it's a big problem they're trying to solve, and you have to have content to be successful. If somebody tries to go to a destination that you have content in and they use your product, great. Then they go to Dallas, you don't have any content. They're not going to keep coming back. And so that's a hard problem, and he's trying to solve it also in a B2C space. He's doing some B2B, but I think he's going to need to figure that solution out on how he gets the content and how he works on a B2B mechanism to get that.
And is there any kind of out there that you've sort of thought, wow, didn't kind of expect that?
The one I did not expect was UTIP.
Yeah.
I really was excited about that.
One of our Hot 25.
Yes. Because it's solving a consumer problem. Like we're all cashless now, and you really want to tip that person, and you're trying to figure out, how do I get money to tip this guy? And I thought that was brilliant. Yeah.
Noreen, great. Thank you for joining us in the studio.
Thanks for having me.